Hello and good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Jeffrey. I'm a Master Naturalist and Chair of the Seminar Committee for the East Central Illinois Master Naturalists. Our talk today is on swallowtail butterflies, how to support them. And it's given by Kelly Allsup. Please remember that this is because Pollinator Week starts next Monday. And so remember to talk to people about the need for pollinators. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to remind you of a couple of housekeeping items. Please remain mute during the presentation and put any questions into chat. I will read those to Kelly at the conclusion of her talk, and then she will respond. Also, please fill out the evaluation. It really matters that we have a record of your opinion of the talks. The talk will be recorded and available on the extension YouTube. We'd like to begin today by recognizing and acknowledging that we are on the lands of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankashaw, Waya, Miami, Mascoutin, Odawa, Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Chickasaw nations. These lands were the traditional territory of these native nations prior to their forced removal. These lands continue to carry the stories of these nations and their struggles for survival and identity. As a land grant institution, the University of Illinois has a particular responsibility to acknowledge the peoples of these lands, as well as the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this institution for the past 150 years. We are also obligated to reflect on and actively address these histories and the role that this university has played in shaping them. This acknowledgement and the centering of Native peoples is a start as we move forward for the next 150 years. And now for today. We have a recent study tracking butterfly abundance in Ohio over the last 20 years that has discovered a 33% decline. We can only assume that in Illinois, we have similar patterns in decline in our butterfly population. Scientists believe the decline may be attributed to climate change, habitat degradation, and/or agricultural practices. We know we have to plant milkweed for monarchs, but what about the other 149 butterfly species in Illinois? With this presentation, Kelly will tell you what plants need to be put in your garden to help 6 species of swallowtail butterfly caterpillars. She will also describe their life cycle and how to identify them. She has a handout of 4 of the 6 swallowtails available to you, and those will be covered in this presentation. If you plant certain plants, you can increase the swallowtail butterfly habitat in your own garden. Kelly wants you to grow parsley, for example, for the black swallowtail caterpillars. Check out her latest blog. To describe Kelly, she is a horticulture educator for the University of Illinois Extension, serving Livingstone, McLean, and Woodford counties. She meets the educational needs of her community, including local chapters of Master Gardener and Master Naturalist volunteers. Through expertise in home horticulture and entomology, Her passion for ecologically friendly gardening and all things plants makes her a dynamic speaker on topics that range from beneficial insects, growing vegetables and fruits, to urban trees. A graduate of University of Illinois, she is fervent about connecting the latest horticulture research to the communities she serves, so that they may grow more food and conserve the environment. Some around us have called her the biggest advocate for insects in the entire Illinois. So without further ado, Kelly, we are so pleased to have you, and we look forward so much to listening to your talk.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I sound pretty awesome, so hopefully I live up to that. Yeah, it's National Pollinator Week, and that starts technically it starts next Sunday. And so we definitely want to do something fun during National Pollinator Week. One of the things that one of my goals for Swallowtail butterflies was I taught the master gardeners how to teach this presentation. And one of the things that I wanted to do is I wanted to put an activity that goes along with the presentation, because I know by, me interacting with the public, I know when I bring something fun to do, I tend to feel like I have made a better impact. So if you want to celebrate National Pollinator Week, or you want to do some fun activities for pollinators with kids, this creating a butterfly puddle should be something that can be easy for master gardeners and master naturalists to do. And then it kind of emphasizes some things about butterflies. So I also wanted you to learn a list of larval plants. I wanted you to learn about how butterflies are amazing in the way that they adapt to the environment, and then be able to identify some swallowtail butterflies. I think it is so much easier to identify plants than it is to identify insects. And we know that just because of the life cycles that they go through, and that they can really, those things that make me love them and how they adapt to the environment makes them hard to identify. So swallowtails really, they're large, they're colorful, they have those little projections off the end of their wings. They commonly visit flowers, but also visit things like mud and sand and rotting materials and dung. So when you create this puddle, what you're doing is they're wanting the salts and the amino acids from the soil or the sand that you might put in this. And it's usually the males of the species that do this thing called puddling. Now, this is a picture that definitely has what looks like some, at least one monarch and some little, maybe what looks like maybe buckeye, I'm not sure. But most of these are there for the salts and the amino acids. And think about, your garden, you have the flowers and the nectar, but do you also have the water that these insects need? So we're going to go straight into one. Okay, well, we'll see if we're going to go straight into one. Okay, here is the black swallowtail. So let me tell you, butterfly, if you think it's hard to identify butterflies, it is okay. It is very difficult because they do these things that make them adapt to the internet. So if you look here at this black swallowtail, right? This is a beloved black swallowtail. This is the one that as a larval form feeds on parsley, but we see sexual dimorphism, which means that the female looks a little bit different from the male. And the way that we can tell this is he has much more yellow spots than she, and she has more blue scaling than he. Another way to know that it's a black swallowtail is it has that little eye spot where the bottom of the wings meet, and it's orange. And then it has these little protrusions.
Kelly?
Yes.
There's a display issue. We're seeing kind of try to switch. There you go. All right,
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Well, I couldn't advance the slide, so okay. I'll keep going.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's a display issue, interrupt me right away. Okay. Cool. Thank you for that. Okay. And so, even if you come up to the butterfly and you're like, oh, is this a black swallowtail? Is this, is this another one of the swallowtails, a pipevine? It can be very difficult to tell the difference between the females. Another thing I want to bring up when it comes to swallowtails is Müllerian mimicry. And Müllerian mimicry is a type of mimicry where several species we're going to do a butterfly here. Several species of butterflies tries to look like one common model. And that common model is Pipevine Swallowtail. So this black swallowtail right here is actually trying to mimic a Pipevine Swallowtail. And the females can change and alter a little bit more than the males. The males must stay the same, but females will start mimicking even more. Not that he is not mimicking the Pipevine Swallowtail also. So other ones, the Spicebush Swallowtail, the black swallowtail, the tiger swallowtail, even the red spotted purple butterfly are all mimicking the Pipevine Swallowtail. And the reason they're doing this is because the Pipevine Swallowtail is supposedly distasteful and poisonous, and so they will mimic that. So is that a lot? So we have sexually dimorphic Müllerian mimicry. And then another thing about the swallowtails, the caterpillars, they usually in their youth look like bird droppings. Sometimes they may have eye spots, and then they have this peculiar little scent gland that comes from the top of their head, and it smells bad. And this is called an asterium. Now, in the beginning, I thought that only a few swallowtails have this, but this is
Kelly, do you have a photograph of the?
I do. And I'll go into more description.
Because we're still looking at that picture of the black.
Okay, yep, I will keep going. Okay. So when we look at the side view of the black swallowtail, because black swallowtails, usually when they feed with their wings at rest. And so it can be difficult, because I commonly say all the time, I'm like, hold on, butterfly, hold on, let me identify you. Can you open your wings? And of course, they don't do what I say. So one of the things that is very, gives you right away that we have a black swallowtail is, again, you see those row of white dots on the sides of the abdomen. That right there should tell you that you have a black swallowtail. And also, if you've noticed that the yellow is kind of replaced by the orange on the undersides. And then you see that swallowtail. And now some scientists believe that the swallowtail, the tail protrusions are actually mimicking antenna, so that if a bird were to take this out, it would take out a non-vital portion of the insect. So here is that yellow sticky asterium that I was talking about. And again, here is a black swallowtail. As it starts out, it looks a little bit more like I said, like bird droppings, because you're not going to, munch on your own droppings, right? Because birds are really one of their biggest predators. Also, parasites. So parasitic wasp or certain diseases can get them. But you look here, you see your typical swallowtail parsley worm, and it is, when you poke it, it uses this as a defense, and it smells bad. It's funny. If you poke them too much, they'll stop putting them out. But it's really one of the things that I love doing with kids is let's scout the parsley and look for the black swallowtail caterpillars, and then I'll show you how they defend themselves. So little defenseless caterpillar has nothing to defend itself, but it has this, and this really is quite fascinating in how they defend themselves. So this one, the black swallowtail, we see these all over our gardens, right? We know that the larva eats parsley, but it eats, also dill and fennel. It really likes plants in that carrot family. So the adults, they actually like flowers. So these guys you will see fluttering from flower to flower. They overwinter as a pupa. So what does that mean to you? If you had parsley in your garden and there were tons of caterpillars, you obviously have pupas somewhere within your landscape. So if you clean up your landscape in the fall, you would be getting rid of those pupa, those future black swallowtails. So anywhere you have anything that has a larval food, you're not going to clean up, because usually that's where these guys are overwintering. And then they, I like to describe how they act. So the black swallowtail, kind of the male will perch. They kind of have this, really pretty kind of lazy back and forth movement. So really quite, like I said, pretty in how they move. So just by seeing a black butterfly and knowing it's a swallowtail, and if it moves really gracefully, it might be a good indication that it's a black swallowtail. So here is the next one. We have Pipevine Swallowtail. It's kind of velvety black. Looking at it, you can tell it's, kind of different from the black swallowtail, and it doesn't have those orange markings, doesn't have those yellow crescents along the edge. It doesn't have the blue. It kind of looks like, almost all black and velvety, and it has these little kind of like white dots, and it kind of looks iridescent blue. So this one's also more is also sexually dimorphic, and the males have more blue iridescence than the female. Although when you're identifying in the field, this would be kind of hard to be like, is that really iridescent or slightly iridescent? But know that that's how we tell the difference. But how we really tell how we really identify this is, again, the black wings is the 7 orange dots. And they follow the curve of the wing, and they're on an iridescent black background. These are in, they primarily are in the woodlands, so they're not as prevalent in our gardens, maybe because of what they eat, because we tend not to, I'll show you, we tend not to grow this plant quite so much anymore. But if you've heard of Dutchman's pipe or pipevine, these are vines in the Aristolochia family. These vines make those caterpillars distasteful. And this is what this Pipevine Swallowtail, let me just move back. This is what everybody is trying to mimic. They're trying to look like this guy. I'm going to move forward. This is Dutchman's pipe growing outside of Sarah's garden at David Davis Mansion here in Bloomington. And you say, why of all the plants? This is a plant that Sarah grew back in the 1800s. So, you know, back in the 1800s, they didn't have landscape plantings like this. So first of all, that's kind of unique that they actually planted stuff up against the house. And then the fact that it's, you know, quite a unique plant, and it's not something that we tend to grow as much in our garden anymore. And if you look up at the top, that's a little picture of the flower and how it looks. Now the caterpillar looks very different than the black swallowtail caterpillar. It's brown and black and has these orange spikes on it. And they also feed in groups. So you're gonna, you know, where you may look at you may look at a parsley and you'll see like 4 or 5 throughout the plant. Here you're gonna see lots of them feeding. They're using that group mentality to protect themselves. The larval food also, oh, I already said that. They will also, the adults will feed on flowers, but they're also attracted to mud. They pupate as they spend the entire winter as a pupa, and then they may either emerge later in that season or early in the spring the following season. So again, if this were a plant I had in my garden, I would never clean up after. The wings kind of flash in the sun because of that iridescence, and the flight is rapid with low fluttering beats. So tiger swallowtail, definitely, I know it's a tiger swallowtail because it has that little tiger mark. And then it's yellow and it's bright and it's 5 inches. It's one of our biggest swallowtail caterpillars. And it has all of these bars, the black bars on the top of the wings, and then these white, these yellow dots along the edges. The females actually have a little bit more blue scaling, and in the under part, sorry. So you look at that little curve next to the black arrow that tells you it's a tiger swallowtail. You look at the dots along the side, it tells you a tiger swallowtail. Okay, now look here. This is also a tiger swallowtail. So you can't, just because it's black, you can't automatically say that it is a black swallowtail, because it could be a tiger. And then when you actually see the black butterfly, it can be very difficult to decide if you see those little tiger marks or you see those bars across the tops of the leaves. I mean, leaves, I can tell I'm a plant person. The tops of the wings. So we have those yellow dots along the edge. Females have blue scaling. So if you look at these, at this left side, we have the glaucus and the turnus. Now forget those. I mean, unless you're on Jeopardy, you're never going to know. But the turnus just means that that was the way it looked originally. The glaucus means that's how it has tried to look like a different species, again, with that Müllerian mimicry. And we're going to see those, lots of that blue scaling that we wouldn't have seen as much in. And then we're also going to actually, if you see the plant with its wings closed, you could probably see a little bit of that tiger kind of curvy mark that the blue arrow is pointing to. So those definitely in the yellow form, very easy to distinguish. In the black form, not as many orange spots and different configuration for the black swallowtail. The tiger swallowtail, this is where it looks kind of like where it has eye spots. I call swallowtails kind of like the king of daptions, because they start off looking like bird poop. Now they look like a small snake, which in turn helps them out, because what do you have when you're a caterpillar? You have pretty much nothing to defend yourself. And now you have this, these eye spots. Now, if you look at this next picture, it's called a wafer ash. Now, I tried to figure out, why we don't grow wafer ash anymore, and I couldn't figure it out. I know it's a native tree. It looks pretty ornamental. I've not really heard of it in my horticulture career, but I did find, some research and some naturalists actually promoting this, just because it is a larval form for tiger swallowtail. Another larval source for tiger swallowtail is cherry, tulip tree, cottonwood, sweet bay magnolia, and we know, everybody, if we have a spot that gets too much water and we want a nice big tree, sweet bay magnolia is your tree. And then we have these wafer ashes that are really kind of compact, blooms in the spring. Here's our Spicebush Swallowtail. The way that I tell these is those pale green chevrons along the edge of the wings. Nothing else has a pale green chevron. Some of the others have yellow and orange. And then they also have that particular orange yellowish dot where the wings meet together on the outer edge. That is another thing that tells me right away this is a Spicebush Swallowtail. They are all, they have this kind of greenish appearance. The males and females, the males are more green and the females are a little bit more blue. I don't have a picture right here, but it's really those pale green chevrons that tell me right away. This is one that you're going to find in the woodlands, your fields, the flower gardens. When it's at rest, if you see that sparkly that interrupts after the fourth dot, you know that that is a Spicebush Swallowtail. Now, we looked at some of the other ones and they did not have that iridescence interruption that this one has. Now, this one's more common in the southern 2/3 of our state. So may not have as many of these if you live, north of a certain point. So Spicebush, this larva again starts off resembling bird poop, starts to look like a snake. Notice this one has much larger eye spots than the tiger swallowtail, but this does have different larval sources. So Spicebush Swallowtail, like Spicebush, but it also will eat sassafras, and sassafras is I think I go into more description in the next one. So sassafras is a native that you can grow for this. And the adults kind of fly slow and close to the ground, and they kind of bound from flower to flower. So we look at sassafras and spicebush. These are, really common Illinois natives that are promoted by naturalists or gardeners like yourself. But this just adds on an extra layer of us needing these. We have the spicebush, not as commonly used, and the sassafras. Both have brilliant fall color. Why you wouldn't want to plant this is beyond me. I love the polymorphic state of the leaves of the sassafras, and it does form a thicket because it does do some kind of root grafts where you need to put it in the right place. But spicebush can be really anywhere, and it can grow in some shade and some sun. Zebra swallowtail, this is the one that's not really as prevalent. I don't even have to teach you how to identify this one, because if you saw this, it'd be pretty unique and you'd probably know right away it was a zebra swallowtail. But just so it has when the wings are closed, it has that red line outlined by the black and white. It kind of looks like, a little slug or something. It turns shades of green and white and black and has these yellow stripes. This one, the larval food source is pawpaw, because pawpaw contains properties that make the caterpillars and the butterflies unpalatable. So the adults of this will feed on flowers. They overwinter as pupa, and they're kind of erratic in how they fly low to the ground. Again, the giant swallowtail, I probably don't have to describe what this looks like and how to tell the difference between this. It's another one of those that's not the most common that I see, but it is by far the biggest one. It has sort of dark brown compared to the black and yellow. And the underside is predominantly shades of yellow with only a small amount of blue and maybe a little bit of orange. This one starts off mimicking butterdrops and becomes shinier. Now, this one has a red asterium, and it kind of looks it does look shiny. And then one of the larval food sources you see right here is meadow rue. They also, that wafer ash that was talked about with tiger swallowtail is also a larval food source for this. Another food source for giant swallowtail is gas plant. It is also another old-fashioned plant that is not grown in a lot of gardens, clearly, because it does have some properties that can be harmful to some people. It's to some people it's not harmful at all. To some people it can be, they'd have to wear gloves to work with the plant. But giant swallowtail, that we do find giant swallowtail on the gas plant. Here is it on the gas plant. And I wanted to show you a picture of what the flowers look like on a gas plant. It's really a beautiful plant, definitely worthy of a garden. But then this is two that, they are so cool looking. They're so shiny. They kind of look like, I don't know, monkey faces in a bit. Would be really ecstatic to find these on a plant. So this is Martha Smith. She took two of them, were feeding on her gas plant. And with that, I am done. So just in conclusion, we have our spicebush that's important, Dutchman's pipe, that wafer ash, meadow rue, sassafras, pawpaw, parsley, dill, and fennel are all plants that would that could benefit swallowtail larvae if they were planted in your garden.
Thank you very much, Kelly. What beautiful creatures they are.
Absolutely.
Let me start with a question I have. It seems so strange that we get all the swallowtails right here like this. And I wonder, do they come from a single ancestor? Do you know?
I don't know for sure, but my educated guess would be yes. They have evolved over time to maybe because of plant availability or, what's growing. Yeah, I'd say that they've evolved.
Okay. In the spring, lots of things are happening, and then we need to clean up. And you made a very, very good point about the fact that we don't want to clean up too soon and disturb the pupa or the pupae. Could you give me some kind of idea of when it would be safe to clean up? Or do we have to look for the pupae?
Okay, think about how you clean up. Okay, if you sit there and you rake everything out, then you're probably going to rake it out. There's two different, one of the reasons, when are they going to enclose? That's the point. When are they going to in the spring? And I'm going to say that I can't tell you March 15th, right? Because all insects are super dependent on temperature. So they're going to open up on certain degree days. Let's say, in a normal year by April 15th, they've already enclosed and you're fine to clean up. In a off year, they may enclose April 1st, you're fine and clean up. So what Heather Home does, which Heather Home has been by far the biggest advocate of not cleaning up your garden until the late spring. One of the things that she does is she waits until she actually sees new growth. So it isn't until she sees new growth, and she's doing that for the overwintering bees. One of the things that I personally wouldn't do before the pupa is to rake, and try to make that garden look so pristine that there's not a single thing out of spot. So, but I have been a huge advocate of not using so much mulch. I don't feel like we need so much mulch. I feel like we kind of choke out our plants a little bit with just all this mulch, just mulch everywhere. And then mulch makes it difficult for, some of this stuff to survive. And so I can't tell you an exact date. I would just prefer you not to, if you truly want to help the swallowtail, I wouldn't clean up that area at all, ever during the spring. I would just let it be. And I know that's hard for some gardeners because we look out into the landscape and we want to see this pretty pop of purple and this very neat green and this, but that's not how nature is. And that's not how nature runs. So I guess, when you think about, I know I'm going lengthy answer here. What I would like for you to do is I would like you to wait to see the new growth going. And then when you actually go in there and start cutting things back, I want you to leave everything in the garden. I want you to cut it up, into littler pieces. You don't have to have big honking stems in your garden, but I want you to start leaving that in the garden because that is your nutrition. That is the cycle that you're supposed to follow. So if you leave that debris in the garden, then you're not going to remove your pupas or mistakenly remove beneficial insects or mess with native bees.
Oh, thank you. And Lisa pointed out that, of course, there are other pupae around as well, like the praying mantis. We may all have seen the praying mantis. It's quite large, a pupa, and certainly I found it in all sorts of places. As far as how far do you think that the caterpillar is likely to travel before it pupates? Can we get some kind of idea about the area to look for the pupae by how far away it is from the carrot family that it's been feeding?
That is a really good question. I have never researched this question, but I have noticed myself. For instance, I've had monarch caterpillars cross a road. And I don't understand why they would cross the road to climb up on a building to pupate. So I cannot answer that question because I don't know how far that they're willing to go. I think they're willing to go a little bit further than what people think.
Well, you may very well be right. Lisa points out that she had one pupa that she found 15 feet away from the garden on the barn door. And so that is quite a distance to have gone.
Yeah. Like these milkweed, these monarchs, I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe they had crossed that hot street to pupate.
Yes.
But then some of them stayed right in the garden and pupated right there. So I don't know. But that's a good question.
To come back for a moment to the fact that we're so fortunate in Illinois to have so many of these swallowtails. Do you know how broadly across the USA we've found swallowtails?
They're everywhere.
Everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're on every continent. They're in every habitat.
So I don't feel so special anymore.
Oh, you should feel special. I mean, they might, your Spicebush Swallowtail isn't everywhere. I mean, it's only
Right.
going to be where there's spicebush growing, and then there's swallowtails that are in the tropics that eat food from there.
Well, Spicebush and the sassafras.
Yeah,
And
the sassafras.
we're fortunate here in our area to have a lot of sassafras just growing wild down the roads. I was on the road to Kinney, a little town, and I passed, it must have been half a mile of sassafras blooming the other day.
Wow.
Quite beautiful because it's bright yellow. Steve wants to know, if we don't have pipevine, what are we going to feed the pipevine swallowtails on?
That's the problem. It's like, if we don't have milkweed, what are we going to feed the monarchs?
So if it's that bad, where do we find pipevine?
I think that I don't know what to say. I personally think that you would find it online in seed form, easier than you would find it in a plant form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's some seed out there. And in fact, we actually had at the Community Cancer Center here in Bloomington, she ordered it from one of the native nurseries in Illinois.
Okay, thank you very much. You used the term, I think, eclose.
Eclose?
Yes. Can you explain eclose?
That's when they come out of the pupa.
Oh, how long does that take?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it varies. I remember once when I was when we teach butterflies to children, we use Painted Lady because they create this food source for painted ladies that make the caterpillars, it's easy to rear them. But if you were doing monarchs, you'd be scrounging for food every day. But I remember one of them climbing to the top and forming the J. And I showed the kids the J. And so there was probably, I don't know, 15, 20 kids. And I was like, now pass it down and show the next kid. And by the time it had made it to the 20th kid, it was a pupa. So that part happened fast. I know they're in the pupa for about 2 weeks. Now, do I think it takes more than 24 hours for them to eclose? No, I don't, but I don't know for sure exactly how long it takes. But they are in their most vulnerable state at that point in time. Because when they come out, their wings are not, they have to pump their blood. They don't really have blood. They have hemolymph. They have to pump that hemolymph through their wings.
Yes.
So I don't know exactly how long it takes for them to eclose.
That's fine. So Tina was watching some pupae over winter, waiting and waiting and waiting to see the eclose.
Mm-hmm.
It never happened. And when she looked closely at the pupae, she found little holes. Is this a wasp or anything that has got in and...
Yeah, it is most likely a wasp, a parasitic wasp. There's parasitic flies out there that'll do the same type of thing. It's, when you think about the tomato hornworm, you think about those little white pupal sacs that you get on them. Those are parasitic wasps. So research shows that 9 out of 10 monarch caterpillars do not make it to adulthood because of things like parasitic wasps, parasitic flies, and then just natural disease. So that is without a doubt probably what happened with that swallowtail. Now think about, the fact that I was able to quote a study from Ohio, very rare. That research is just simply not out there as to what is the status of swallowtails. What is the status of this? All of our research is honeybees and monarchs. So we know a lot about them, which is wonderful. They're our poster child. They are wonderful. They are keeping it going. But the fact that we have very little research on everything else, we have thousands of bee species, hundreds of bee species, excuse me, don't let me over exaggerate, hundreds of bee species that, we just don't know what their status is because that is not what has been important for us to study. So that Ohio study really excited me. I mean, not that I want 33% decline. I actually thought there would be more than 33%.
I understand. And so do you know of any citizen science projects on swallowtails that maybe the master naturalists could join?
I do not. I mean, I know the generalist ones, they have that, the Sunflower Project, and no, I don't know of anyone. I've never looked that up. That's a good question, though.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, Debbie believes that she had a pupa that initiated, what's the word? Is that eclipse?
Eclose?
Eclose? Emerging after 2 years. It completely missed last year. Maybe it was afraid of COVID, huh?
That is exactly what the answer is. Yeah, if it didn't come out in a year, it's not viable anymore.
Yes. And Amanda points out that if there's no specific citizen science project, we could at least start adding information to iNaturalist and sort of do our own citizen science without a leader, hoping that someday somebody would decide to pick up the information.
And that's why I start off with that activity. You're like, Kelly, really? Why are you teaching a bunch of master naturalists about this butterfly petal? I'm telling you what, you guys do that butterfly petal somewhere. I mean, they will be raving about you. I mean, those kids, they love these little tiny activities. It kind of teaches them that, monarch butterflies are just like animals, just like us. They need food, they need water, they need habitat. That's why I really love that activity.
I think puddling is really neat, but it sort of surprises me that butterflies are the opposite way around to humans, in that the males all puddle together and the females go off and puddle by themselves. Well, I think you've done a wonderful job for us in raising our awareness of the swallowtails. It's still not too late for you to go out and get some parsley and plant it. If you don't have a herb nursery nearby, you can even go to the grocery store and find growing parsley. And
yes.
So that would be an easy way to get started.
And parsley is the herb of the year. Not that that makes any difference, but it's the herb of the year.
Wonderful. Well, if you come to Educator, anyone, you'll see that around the library downtown, we have several gardens, and one of them is a herb garden, and it has parsley. And I'm sure that you would probably find the same thing in Champaign-Urbana. I don't know. I don't know what you have in Bloomington, whether you have a garden that's available that would have herbs in it.
Oh, yes. Illinois State University has a horticulture center, and the McLean County Master Gardeners here run an herb garden. So
Okay, lovely. Okay, well, I think that we've had a wonderful time listening to you. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And I wish you all good luck in spying butterflies and caterpillars and pupae. Goodbye.
Bye.